What's up everybody, it's Ivan with your daily dose of news for Monday. Now this is not to be confused with me talking about Monday's news. I actually did think about doing that, but it turns out it's really difficult to keep up with all the stuff that's going on each and every day and still be able to report it on the same day. So the news that I'm going to cover may be a few days old, but I still believe that it's stuff that we should know about because I think we should all be aware of what's going on in the world. So let's get started with the global food price increase. Less than a week ago, there was news that global food prices had hit a record high last month, even surpassing prices in 2008. And as an Asian, I remember the 2008 global food crisis really well because during that time, the price of rice doubled, maybe even tripled. Well, I'm not sure of the exact number, but I do remember going to the supermarket and seeing just how expensive rice had gotten. Now, this increase in food prices has made many people nervous because back in 2008, the same issue triggered some pretty serious riots. For example, in Haiti, where rice is a staple in many people's diets, the riots in 2008 resulted in several deaths. Now on the bright side, while the price of rice has increased, it's still below its 2008 levels. But on the other hand, the world's other major food staple, wheat, has increased in price quite rapidly. One big reason for this increase is due to the crazy weather and climate this world's been experiencing. For example, in Australia, flooding has affected wheat and sugar shipments, while in Russia it's the exact opposite. Drought has severely impacted grain production. So basically the world's food supply has decreased. Another reason is due to the increased demand coming from fast-growing developing nations. Because as the standard of living goes up, people will naturally start to consume more goods, food being one of them. And if you know anything about economics, you know that as supply goes down, prices go up. And when demand goes up, prices go up. But when supply goes down and demand goes up at the same time, you've got a major price increase. And now for this quote. Food price increases impact the poor hardest, as food is a high proportion of their incomes. First of all, the person who said this, his name is James Bond, which in my opinion garners instant respect. I mean, how can you disagree with anything James Bond says? Well, unless you're M. Second of all, this quote is a good reminder that even though paying more for food sucks, most of us can still afford it relatively easily. I could still buy rice back in 2008, even though it was more expensive. And why wouldn't I buy rice? I mean, I'm Asian. What else was I supposed to eat? My point is, this price increase is going to affect everyone in one way or another, but it will affect some people much more severely than others. And chances are, it's not going to be you or me. It's going to be people in Egypt, in Haiti, in Cameroon, just like back in 2008. So, even though this might mean next time you go out for dinner, you might have to skip dessert because it's too expensive. Just remember, someone out there might have to skip dinner because it's too expensive. Just something to think about. Moving on to our next story. Last week, Salman Taseer, the governor of Punjab and a member of the Pakistan People's Party, was shot and killed by one of his own bodyguards. Apparently, the killer disagreed with the governor's opposition to the Pakistan blasphemy law, which imposes severe punishment, one of them being death, for doing things like destroying places of worship, defying the Quran, or insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Now, the problem that Salman Taseer had with this law is that since people could not produce evidence of such blasphemy in court, since that would be blasphemy in itself, it was easy for people to use this law to falsely accuse others that they don't like. In fact, Salman Taseer was accused of blasphemy himself because he had called for the pardon of Asia Bibi, who was sentenced to death for insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Now, it's interesting to note that Asia Bibi was a Christian, as many people believe that this law has been used to persecute people of other beliefs and religions. Now, if you agreed with Salman Taseer and his political stance, you might see this as a step back for the nation. And even if you never liked the guy or disagree with him, you have to admit that this is a sad story. A man was killed by the person he trusted his life with, and a family is now without a father and a husband. Now, let's move on to our feel-good story of the day. And if you're thinking, please don't talk about Ted Williams again, the first thing I'll say is, no, this story is not about Ted Williams. The second thing I'll say is, what's wrong with talking about Ted Williams? A homeless man gets a second chance in life through the power of the internet. How's that not a great story? But anyway, I'm here to talk about the referendum for South Sudan to separate and become independent from North Sudan. Now, if you haven't been aware of what's been going on in the past few decades in the country, basically, South Sudan has been under the control and oppression of its northern counterparts, and as a result, constant conflict has occurred between the two sides. It's been estimated that about 2.5 million people have died due to the two Sudanese civil wars, one from 1955 to 1972, and the second from 1983 to 2005. Now, war is terrible in and of itself, But these wars were especially bad. We're talking about civilians being captured and enslaved, as well as the use of child soldiers. I don't care how twisted your mind is, you have to agree that this was horrible no matter how you look at it. But yesterday, Sunday, January 9th, 2011, Sudan began its referendum on secession, which basically means that the Sudanese could now vote to have South and North Sudan become independent nations. And of course, even after they gain independence, there will be lots of stuff to deal with. Most importantly, how to draw the border between the two countries. But nevertheless, the people there could not be happier. And seriously, I don't blame them. This has been something that they've been waiting for many, many years. And that is our feel-good story for today. So, that's all I have for today. Hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you all next time for another Daily Dose of News.